Hello, everyone. My name is Darren Clark, and I'm the CEO for Succeed with Dyslexia. And we have an amazing discussion today. We have Quin, our great friend from Underpins, and he's going to be talking to us around assistive technology, but just not around assistive technology, but around the kind of benefits that has. So massive thank you, Quin, for taking time out of your busy schedule today and joining us for our Succeed with Dyslexia talk. Quin, could you just tell us again who you are and again, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, no worries. Well, Darren, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. As you said, I'm Quin. My name's Quin Chandler. So I work with Underpins. We're close friends with Succeed with Dyslexia. So it's really great to be included on this interview today and this talk today. Me personally, I've been working with Underpins for a number of years now, and I work across two sectors, actually, the primary school sector and also the higher and further education sector, doing business development, training, implementation, that kind of thing. And I guess I'm joining this call really because I've got a big passion for assistive technology. Darren, if I level with you, I probably wasn't the easiest student. I am actually educated to degree level, which is good. And I got there in the end, but I was definitely found it hard, or I might have been tricky. So I understand through that and have a passion through that about implementing the right accommodations for different needs, and whether those be identifiable, obvious or not, So yeah, that's kind of led me to where I am today. And I've been working within ed tech, if you like, since 2013. So hopefully well placed to answer some of your questions around assistive tech.
Honestly, it's an absolute pleasure I know how incredibly busy you are and the incredible things that you're doing work-wise. So yeah, it's fantastic to have you. Quin, I just wanted to touch on the fact that you mentioned that schooling was a little, you say, wasn't kind of something that we won't.
Probably shouldn't have said anything, right?
No, just really intrigued. The reason why I ask, and again, yeah, it is for around I think it goes hand in hand, so to speak, when we're talking about assistive tech, we're talking about education, and we're talking about the people who are going to be using these tools to be able to help further their education. So sorry for putting you on the spot, but was it just the education? Was it just the tools, or was it just the way that you learn differently?
For me personally, yeah. So I wouldn't have like an identifiable special need or anything like that. I just think my learning styles were very much hands-on, very much learn by doing, which probably is the same for a lot of young lads. Not to bracket it, I'm sure a lot of young ladies are the same, but a lot of young lads learn like that. And I think that it wasn't as obvious to identify and signpost towards assistive technology in those days. Not that I'm dusting off the cobwebs, it wasn't that long ago, but quite a while back. So I think that led me to have an understanding once I started seeing the edtech landscape as to how it isn't a pigeonholing of a resource to one type of individual. And I think actually it shows that assistive technology is open to the wide landscape of students. Anybody can benefit. Literally anybody can benefit. There's so much out there that can be beneficial to different needs. And I think that's what's been beautiful for me in the time that I've worked within technology, that I've seen the mindset sort of shift and really open up, and the real understanding from all of us, within using tech every day, to how it can support everyone, yeah, and I think so that's what I was kind of getting at. Really, just it's built me an understanding as to, a reading aid isn't just for someone who's dyslexic or, whatever it might be.
Absolutely. And it's so powerful having that empathy and also the experience when you're going in, because I guess we can get a little tunnel vision sometimes when we go in and go, there's processes and everything. You go, okay, so this is the task and this is how it should be done. And I believe that there's, when you've experienced doing something in a different way, or, having to change the path that you do, it does allow you to connect more, I think personally, through that. But thank you for sharing that.
That's okay. Yeah, you've opened me up, Darren. You've opened me up. But I definitely would concur. I think having empathy is essential, and especially working within education. So yeah.
Absolutely. So we touched really briefly on assistive tech, and so what kind of assistive tech is kind of available out there? So if someone's from your experience, what you do, what does that kind of look like in the sense of what's kind of available?
Yeah, so with Scanning Pens, we support reading needs. So we offer electronic reading aids that enable students, whether they're dyslexic, whether they've got sort of reading anxiety, just any kind of reading difficulty, if you like, or difference, to access any text independently and open and unlock those doors. And that's just one of many things. You know, there's so much stuff within, we sort of often talk about high, medium and low tech. That's available to implement and support within schools. And I mean, there's everything from computer software that supports your reading and your writing to audiobooks, iPads, you know, this kind of stuff that's out there. And I think there's such a wide range of things that schools already have in place that enables students to, I guess, access text and access their learning in a better way and in a more inclusive way. The focus that we have at Scanning Pens is about the independent reading aids. And we talk a lot about, and I believe this wholeheartedly across the whole assistive tech industry, we talk a lot about supporting independence, you know, enabling students to learn by doing, empowering students to feel that they can and develop a can-do attitude. And I think that would be, if I was kind of pigeonholing assistive tech, I would talk about that, you know. But yeah, such a wide variety of things out there that I guess just meet such a wide variety of needs.
Absolutely, and I guess, you know, certain schools, I guess, are at different stages in the understanding of what assistive tech is out there. You know, you have, I guess, in some schools they've got lots of assistive tech, and other schools they're probably thinking, you know, how do we implement it? If we were to bring in assistive tech, what would that look like? Do we need special training? Does this, you know, what does that kind of look like? So in your kind of experience of what have you kind of seen with regards to how schools have implemented you know, tech into their schools, and how that kind of is impacted, you know, positively within for the students?
You know what? It's a really good question, because there's two sides to every coin, right? And some schools, and not just schools, I don't want to talk badly about schools, but some of us as people, we run before we can walk, right? So we see the new, let's say, iPad. Oh my God, I've got budget for 15 of these. Schools are probably thinking, I don't have budget at all, but you know, I might have budget for these. And then actually they run, and then there's no thought process about the implementation. Or you might see something at a show, or you might see something in a magazine and think, wow, this would be fantastic. But you're not the end user. So you haven't thought about the implementation, and that can actually, you know, mean that things that are really valuable go into the cupboard of shame, you know, and collect dust, that kind of thing, or software that you've subscribed to and isn't used. And that actually has been, again, like I said, working within EdTech since 2013. I have seen a real shift in that mindset. I think I watched the implementation of Chromebooks, iPads in schools, and trained a lot around that. And there was so many examples of people, you know, running before they can walk, or not having synergy between an IT department that have bought them and the teaching department that are going to use them, and that kind of thing. But I do think, as with anything in life, there needs to be a strategy. And I think the beauty of the majority of assistive tech products is that schools can trial them first.
Yeah.
So I might meet you, Darren, and talk to you about the Scanning Pens that we provide. And you might say, this actually fulfills some of the needs I've got. You know, I've waded through a lot of paper. This will simplify my, you know, my process with that. It'll help me process text, decode what I'm trying to read. And you might think, brilliant, but you might not know that it works. Because again, something that is really important in any, I guess, discussion is not assuming that it's a one shoe fits all. So I'm talking about our products, a reading aid. It doesn't necessarily support every dyslexic person. You might want your human reader. You might want a computer. So the trial process is great first to really, you might have an identification of students in your mind, but then to get it into play, whether that's in the classroom or in another setting, and to get it into play in a free environment is great. And I think it gives you an idea of how it works. But beyond that, we as a company, we will always offer training. And I know, you know, a number of companies, I'm sure, will do the same, whether like you and I now on Zoom, or whether we're in the school, you know, whatever it be. And then resources that support the use of the technology that's being used. So again, if I can talk best about Scanning Pens, because that's where I do my work, we actually have fantastic resource books created by our education team. So these are short stories and comprehension activities that build students' familiarity with the pen and its functions, but also help their students sort of self-supporting documents. So it helps a teacher really know if that resource is supporting the student's needs. So not only is it helping the student, it's helping the teachers really understand if the product's good.
Quin, so many valid points within this, and I guess it's that process, isn't it? Because I guess from the off, someone might go to an expo, or they might, like you say, might see an advert or something else, and think, and that's always shown in the best possible light, because it would say, do you have troubles with reading? This is SNES. Yeah. This is the solution. And you're absolutely right, because sometimes the buyer or the person that's getting it has to understand how that relates. I know with my own dyslexia that if someone gave me a certain tool, it probably wouldn't work so say brilliantly for me from the way that I work, but for someone else they could flourish. But it is that understanding, isn't it? It's that, and when you mentioned about having resources, having the training, having something that someone can understand, I see it's a full package, really, of how schools can implement it into the educational system to then really kind of help that person that needs that device, that tech.
Yeah, and I think, do you know what? It's interesting you say that. I've got a colleague that said recently to me. He said, his staff at trade shows or expos, like you mentioned there, say to teachers, do you have students with reading difficulties? And he said they'll just, laugh in my face. What sort of question is that? It's so generic, so you do have to delve a lot deeper. And actually, just to elaborate on what I was saying, we when we do research projects with schools, which are really interesting, and that's one of the things I love most, is really seeing a project through and seeing the impact with students. And a lot of students, because they're being assessed all the time anyway, and we as a company did a lot of research about reading levels throughout the pandemic and how schools are recovering from that, as did the government and everyone else. But a lot of the schools use the assessments and then implement the assistive tech. And then after a period of time, let's say a term, half term, reassess the students and really see the impact themselves. So that's not, a company, a brochure. No one can tell you about impact more than that. So that's a really great way we see implementation carried out.
And like I said, that what you've done is, you see the full picture from the idea that there is a tool out there for someone to, device out there that someone can use, to the end, to the user, who's going to be able to use that, and that full picture. And then again, not just kind of drop and run. It's again, evaluating and testing. So I think that's how, if a school was looking then to kind of implement tech into their assistive tech into their, I would really kind of urge in the sense of seeing the full picture of that support, not just the device. 100%.
And I think as well, just to add, I think often we'll speak to a Senko, a literacy coordinator, or a head teacher, and everybody's got a slightly different way in which they might use the tech. Or the end user being the classroom teacher and then their student, or even the teaching assistant and their students. So having that whole school approach prior to implementing something is always key as well. And some schools are fantastic about it or at it, and others, obviously it's quite hard because of time constraints. So we try and always allude to sort of making time for that overview of the project, or creating an IEP to support the rollout so everyone knows their roles. And that's also something we've got in our implementation resources as well. So it makes it very structured.
Absolutely, and I think that's really key, and this will really help people to understand that the process. And again, the support also, that's out there for this. So if we were to kind of just talk about how kind of the assistive tech can support the education as well, how have you had kind of experience around how it's kind of helped students' confidence? And obviously, maybe, when we talk about mental health, we talk about confidence. If we talk about, I can only relate to my school days of, the kind of the frustration not being able to read something, or not having that assistive tech. So that had a huge effect on my self-confidence and the mental health side of it. Have you kind of experienced that in a way, Quin?
Yeah, do you know what? Dramatically. Really, it is probably the nicest part of working in this industry. Like I said, watching the projects through and seeing the growth in students and seeing the results, if you like, I said that was a fantastic part of the job. But the actual social and emotional side that comes with that's the rewarding part. If I break it down, I mean, you kind of alluded to it already there. Students can develop an I can't attitude. from a very young age. So my main passion, I said I work within primary sector and now further education, higher education. My main passion is early implementation, because I believe, obviously it's hard to identify needs early, and schools are getting better at it. There's a lot of petitions for screening early and that kind of thing, which I know you guys are pushing really hard with, which is brilliant. But once you know there's a need, if you can implement something early enough, you can actually change the whole attitude and the whole learning journey of a student. And that, if you can't do, like you said, you built up an anxiety, other people build up a resentment, and not to go too far, but it can result in behavioral issues, whether it's school or at home, complete lack of engagement. We've got thousands of schools and students in the country who won't even attend school because of anxieties. It's scary what, lack of access can build, because like I said before, we're just trying to find ways in which people can work, and everyone works in different ways. And that's the beauty of assistive technology. We're looking for ways to support an individual's needs. Now, to answer your question, yes, and we're inundated with fantastic feedback, and I'm sure every assistive tech company you speak to will say the same. It is beautiful when, a year 5 student turns around and says, they didn't have the confidence to read books their peers were reading, and they were disengaged in their studies because they couldn't access the maths curriculum that they're interested in, but the wordy problems threw them off. Yeah. Or a parent comes to us and says, and we've got case studies, if anyone's ever interested to look at them, we can point in the direction another time. But parents who would say, I had my child coming home really, upset from school, really anxious, not wanting to go back to school. And something as simple as a reader pen that enables them to access text independently and confidently has changed their whole sort of confidence and outlook and approach to school. And it, to be honest, Darren, that comes before the results increase. The developing that can-do attitude as early as possible can really change, like I said, the learning journey, and not only the learning journey, but the life of an individual. And that might sound quite extreme or quite salesy, but when it works, it is phenomenal, the benefits that we see.
And what you've just shared, Quin, is truly wonderful, and it is, you're absolutely right. It is that journey, and when we talk about screening and identifying dyslexia earlier, and what we're trying to do is just give someone that chance and that opportunity to be able to help and support, and assistive tech is played. It's bigger now than it's ever been, and I guess sometimes that's a positive in the sense that, a massive positive, but sometimes it's negative in the way that it gets caught up a little bit in confusion of what assistive tech should I use? What should I do? How would this work? What does this do? And there's so many questions. And I think what you've said so wonderfully in the sense of, if people are looking for this, to understand the support around it, the process and how that kind of works, but also what you've touched on is how it can help the individual, supporting that confidence. There's nothing more rewarding than a child not wanting to go to school, having then the support, some assistive tech to be able to to implement that, to then start finding that love of school again and start going back. I mean, that whole journey is priceless.
It is. And do you know what? One of our slogans, if you like, as a company is develop a love for reading. And we always talk about access to literacy, or access to learning is underpinned by literacy, right? And if you can't access text, how are you going to access anything that engages you? And that really doesn't apply to, becoming a scientist or a mathematician. That applies to learning a trade or becoming a physiotherapist or a sports person. The impact it can have on someone's life is huge. And I think one thing that I would like to add about assistive technology is, I talked about early implementation. You just alluded to it then about carrying on that through the journey of a student or a person. And actually the beautiful thing we see at Scanning Pens is we sell pens and products into primary schools, secondary schools, both of which students can be supported in their examinations, then into colleges, universities, like I mentioned before, and also into the workplace. There's fire services, policemen, accountants, lawyers, all sorts of people using assistive technology on a day-to-day basis, just to make life a little bit easier. It's not rocket science. It just makes the everyday processes slightly easier. And I think that's so important. About the worst thing you could do, I think, is implement something that works. I've got these new running trainers that I run really fast in, but I can't use them in the race. Okay, they don't help me, but actually I can use this every day to support me all the time, whether that be just reading a book at home, in my GCSE examinations, or to pass the bar as a lawyer. So it's fantastic. And I think when used correctly, assistive technology can just unlock so many doors in life. It is fantastic.
I completely agree with Quin. Quin, we're coming up to the end of our time. It's been absolutely incredible speaking with you and understanding more about assistive tech, and also how how people can get involved with this, and again, the help that you can have on people, people, students, and workplaces, and so on. Quin, if people would like to get in contact with yourself, how do they do this?
Scanningpens.com or scanningpens.co.uk if you're watching this in the UK. We're a global company, so wherever you're picking this up, just www.scanningpens.com and it will find you and your location. All the product information's on there, loads of testimonials, interesting case studies, and all of the resources that are free to download that I've mentioned, literacy passports, learning documents, all that kind of stuff. I'd always be happy to chat with anyone around assistive technology. My name's Quin, but it's spelled Quin, just one N. So Quin at scanningpens.com, and you can email me and you'll get some feedback straight away. So always happy to chat. And Darren, just to reiterate, I think the work you guys are doing is phenomenal. I and my team love to follow the journey that you guys have been on as a company. And I think the awareness that you're raising is just second to none. Honestly, we don't see anyone else out there in the market doing what you guys are doing. So it's beautiful to see. And honestly, thank you for having me on today. It's great.
Honestly, thank you. And the team at Succeed are doing doing some wonderful stuff, and the support is fantastic. So thank you so much for your kind words. But also as well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to speak with us. Quin, have an incredible rest of the day, and we'll speak to you very, very soon.
You too, Darren. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video as much as we did putting it together. Now we have some more fantastic content for you. Please feel free to click this link here and learn more about Joe North, the author of a book series geared to help normalize educational needs towards specific individuals in society. If you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.